Welcome to UNCAGED, a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. The program provides a voice to amazing executives from around the globe who are shaping the world of business today and mapping the path to the commerce of tomorrow. Today, we are speaking with Kenny Beck. Hey, Kenny, how are you?
Not too bad for a global pandemic. That was a pretty good introduction, man.
Oh, thanks. I'm excited to talk to Kenny, and definitely Kenny and I have known each other for quite a while. Really love his organization. Kenny's the co-founder and CEO of CEO Connection, which is a company, a group designed to provide mid-market CEOs with customized and personalized access to people, information, resources, and opportunities that will enhance their careers. And it certainly is an incredible organization. And we'll get more into what CEO Connection is doing. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about your background and your career today.
All right, how much time do you have? How much time do I have?
Well, I mean, let's not start at birth.
Okay, all right. So I tell you what, I'll tell you a story that. All right, when I first got to Wharton, all right, there was an article in the Philadelphia Inquirer that said Penn was the number one employer in Philadelphia with 16,000 employees, and I thought this was hilarious because there were 16,000 students. So I wrote a letter to the president of Penn, Sheldon Hackney. And, back then it was a letter, there was no email. And I said, "Dear Sheldon, it's come to my attention that there exists at the University of Pennsylvania a one-to-one correspondence between the number of students and number of employees. Now, I can only assume from this that each student is entitled to a new worker. And since I'm new here, it's time for me to choose mine, and I choose you. So let's get together and discuss our new relationship." And, back then they didn't have a lot of security, like they do now. So we wound up getting together, having lunch, and became very friendly. So a few weeks later, I had this idea to start a student credit union. And instead of going to the student life people, I went to my new best friend, Sheldon Hackney, president of Penn. I said, "Sheldon, I'm going to start this student credit union with or without your help. If I succeed, the University of Pennsylvania will have the only student credit union in the Ivy League, the leader of the student credit union movement, phenomenal hands-on teaching tools, and great banking great banking services for the students. If I fail, you'll have a black eye and I'll graduate." And he laughed, and he immediately committed to depositing $100,000 of the university's money in the credit union at zero interest. And interest rates at the time were 8.5%. So this was a big deal. So now we're off and running. We have 120 students working on developing this business plan so we can go down to Washington, D.C. and convince the National Credit Union Administration to grant us a charter. And the biggest problem we were having was finding office space on campus. And I finally got directed to the chair of what was called the Houston Hall Board. And she was an undergraduate senior. And she said to me, "I'm sorry, we've allocated space for the year. You'll have to come back next year." And I said, "Look, I'm only here for 2 years. If we don't get the space, we won't get the charter." And she said, "I understand, but that's my decision. The board can overrule my decision, but that's my decision." I said, "Great, give me your bylaws." And I looked at the bylaws and I discovered that there was a graduate student representative to the Houston Hall Board, and the seat was vacant. So I got myself appointed. So now I go to this meeting where we're going to try and overrule the chair's decision as a voting member. So my team and I present. We made our presentation. My team gets up to leave, and I stay. And the senior said to me, "Well, what are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm the graduate student representative. I'm going to vote." And she said, "You can't vote. You have to recuse yourself. Get out." And I got up. And I slinked out of the room and I closed the door and I turned to my chief financial officer and I said, "I'm going to marry her. And that's my wife."
Well, there you go. That's what a great way to kick things off. And so, obviously you went on to fabulous career and at some point you started CEO Connection. Tell me a little bit about the background in CEO Connection, because before I do want to get to what it is doing today. But before we get there, how has it evolved?
So it was originally going to be a committee of the Wharton Alumni Association in New York because I was president. Um, and it was going to be a peer group for Wharton CEO alumni, or Wharton alumni CEO, I guess. CEOs, I guess, is a better way to say it. And but when we started investigating it, we discovered 40% of new CEOs fail in the first 18 months, and their biggest complaint is it's lonely at the top. They have nobody to talk to. And then we discovered that there were a myriad of these organizations out there for small businesses and a couple for the Fortune 500, but nothing in the middle. And then we discovered that the middle accounts for $10 trillion of the $30 trillion of gross receipts in the United States and 30 million jobs. And we kind of said, let's forget about the Alumni Association. This is a venture and it's needed. And we launched it. And the idea was that we would build this organization uh, based on not the school that anybody's attended, but the position they've achieved in their career. That is the CEO of a mid-sized company. And ultimately, it was to democratize the old boy network. It's no longer about who you know, it's about who we know collectively.
I remember just when you first shared the CEO connection mission to me, and it really resonated because certainly there were all those organizations that seemed to serve those large companies, the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 groups. But I think you said something like, well, small SMBs, and I went and I Googled what an SMB was, and the definition of an SMB in America is any company below $1 billion in
Right.
revenue. And I thought, wow, that's a lot of companies,
Yeah.
So that's a lot of underserved companies. So certainly, what you guys do fills the gap. Now, I mean, I know that recently you guys have been evolving quite a bit. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are offering now.
Well, so our mission is to help mid-market CEOs succeed, right? And we define that define mid-market companies as companies between 100 million and 3 billion in revenue. And we help them by connecting them to each other. We have over 17,000 in our community, and connecting them to people, information, resources, and opportunities to which they otherwise don't have access, that enhances their career, saves them time, makes them money. So picture it's proactive, curated, customized connections, and we do it for them, and we guarantee the results. So that's how it works. Now we've set up everything so that it's like your annual physical. You go to the doctor once a year. You come up with a wellness plan. You pretend to implement it, and you go back and you do it again. With us, we assign a member advocate. We call them personal CEO connectors, and together with the CEO, we co-create a plan around four modules: career enhancement, personal growth, corporate expansion, and network building. Now, why those four? Because 16 years of experience tells us that those four things are critical to the success of every CEO, and they're completely intertwined. You have to do all four of them, but you don't necessarily have to do all four of them to the same extent all the time. And in fact, every CEO is different, and each year in the life of a CEO is different. So it's completely customized to the individual CEO. Um, Picture an equalizer, an old stereo system. You raise one lever up, push one lever down, depending on the circumstances. Okay. So after we co-create the plan, then we assign a team of people to the CEO because he or she does not have time to do it on his or her own. Right. So there's 3 hours of free executive coaching. There's a personal branding audit. There's a communication assessment, and that's powered by Dale Carnegie, because the CEO of Dale Carnegie chairs our talent management committee. And then an array of other connections are mapped out throughout the year based on the plan. And then, we tweak it throughout the year. Then at the end of the year, we sit down with the CEO and assess the results. If we achieve the goals of the CEO for the year, he renews and goes through the process again. And if not, we
Yeah,
extend it.
I really love it, and I do think it's quite unique because a lot of the other companies that would at least probably use some of the same vernacular that you guys use in terms of your offering, they seem to offer kind of events or one-offs, or like networking parties, things like that. Whereas really what I like about what you're talking about is really a holistic system almost. It's really more, it's very, yes, I guess that's probably the word, system. It's a system. Yeah.
Well,
And yeah,
if you think about it, events are really just a channel of distribution, and they're an inefficient channel of distribution, right? People go to events to meet people who can help them, to find opportunities or to learn something. Listen to a speaker. But the reality is the amount of time, energy, resources that opportunity costs that go into going to an event for a potential ROI where things might happen doesn't often make sense, right? So, I mean, you might meet somebody who can help you. You might see an opportunity, right? So, better we just get to know the CEOs and we say, all right, we're going to connect you to the three people who are perfect to help you, or an opportunity that's perfect for you. And oh, you want to learn from a speaker? Well, instead of sitting in an audience and listening with everybody else, we'll connect you one on one, have the conversation directly.
so I know that during the pandemic, there were some good examples of how the network really networked. So I'd love to, if you're able to share, I would love to kind of hear some of those, or at least one of those stories.
The quintessential example happened right at the beginning of the pandemic last year, March 2020. One of our members came to me and said, uh, our engineers have figured out a way to convert CPAPs into ventilators. And you remember this, the ventilators critical at the time, right?
Yeah,
And
big
he
deal.
said, we've been trying to reach people. We've been trying to tell people about this. Nobody will take our call. Can you help us? We can save lives. And in 2 weeks, we had him in the White House. We had him in the governor's office in New York. The CEO of Johnson and Johnson connected him to the CEOs of the two main CPAP manufacturers. Dr. Oz connected him to a doctor on the task force. One of our partners helped him file a patent. And we had members who had idle factories standing by to produce 10,000 units a week. And
Incredible.
he had
Incredible.
no way of knowing we knew all those people. And I keep saying we're the Kevin Bacon of business.
I love that. Yeah. Just probably not 6 degrees, maybe 1 or 2 degrees, it
Right,
seems like.
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you guys obviously touch so many of the major issues that are impacting society today. And I know that there's been a ton of work that you've done in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And I'd love to talk or hear a little bit, maybe a story of something you guys are working on there.
We actually launched the Social Justice Task Force last March. Um, and it was a result of, we wanted to do more than just send out thoughts and prayers. We want to actually accomplish something. And I, I'm of the belief it's a moral imperative for CEOs to do the right thing. And I think we have the opportunity to impact not only our companies but our communities and the mid market as a whole, really. So we pulled together this task force. We have 25 CEOs serving on the task force, and the idea was to come up with things that can actually help people. There's a spectrum of activity between symbolic and tangible. And symbolic is great, but we wanted to focus more on tangible. So we've actually been in the process of launching 5 different programs around helping mid-market companies diversify their boards, diversify their workforce, diversify their supply chain. And then we're actually just about to announce now a program with minority-owned banks where our members will deposit money in those banks. The banks will then use that money to invest in or loan to small minority-owned businesses. And we, CEO Connection, will waive our size requirement for the CEOs of those companies who get the loans, and provide them with the growth acceleration program that I described to you, to help them with wealth creation to grow their companies into mid-sized companies.
It's back to the credit union, Kenny.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's why I always start with that story, because it all goes back to the credit union. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I mean, I've been so impressed with the people that I've met from CEO Connections over the years, and I definitely benefited from attending the board of directors summit that you guys run, which was just spectacular. Such a great learning experience.
Thank
But I mean, as you guys look out in this kind of almost post pandemic era, what are the key things that you guys are focused on?
Well, we're always so we are about mid-market CEOs helping each other and changing the world. So we're always focused on mid-market CEOs. We're focused on working together to help each other, help their companies, and as I said, change the world. So we have a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, no, and I've been really impressed with all the activities. So, I mean, when you kind of talk to some of these guys and women that are running these companies, what are their biggest kind of challenges and concerns right now as they look out towards the post pandemic era?
Well, everybody's right now focused on reopening, right? I mean, they're focused on how they're going to reopen and what's safe, what's not safe, and it's really been interesting the spectrum of activity. Some companies are opening up every day, have to come in. All employees have to come in. Others are going completely virtual. And then, there are others who come in 2 days a week, come in 3 days a week, but every other week. It really depends. And it's really across the board. So a lot of different concerns around how to open and how to keep people safe.
Yeah, I wish that I had the magic answer to that question. I spend a lot of time every time I think I know the right way, it's like holding sand in your hand. Suddenly suddenly seems like a different approach is necessary. And I'm imagining probably that's the reality is that we're all going to have to be just incredibly flexible right now.
Certainly for the foreseeable future. Well, actually, what's the matter with being flexible all the time? I mean, the reality, right?
True. It's true. It's true. Absolutely. So let's change gears a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your own experience during COVID. How did you guys evolve and change, and how has that kind of, I guess, reshaped the business?
Uh, you, we focus 100% in just providing help, resources, anything we could to help not only the members but the community. And you saw that in the social justice task force too. But we had a COVID task force for a while that provided resources in a way that this, what look when everything first started shutting down last March, there was a 3 month period where everybody was just in shock, right? Protecting cash, nothing trying to figure out what to do, and so we spent a lot of time with individual CEOs kind of working through that and helping them getting information. But then what you started seeing things, each company started developing their own way of adapting, and the companies actually started thriving once they adjusted. And so it's been interesting helping through that process.
Yeah, there's it's I think made a lot of companies healthier. Strangely enough, even very sick companies have been forced to get healthier, and that's I think very ultimately going to be a very good thing. I mean, Kenny, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been great to talk to you about everything that CEO Connections is working on, and certainly, as you know, we're big believers and big supporters. If someone wants to find out more about what you guys are up to, where should they go?
Well, easy enough. The website, ceoconnection.com. Really simple to remember. And lots of information there, apparently.
Yeah, that's perfect. So ceoconnection.com. We've been talking to Kenny Beck. He's been telling us about the organization that he founded and he is the CEO of, which is CEO Connections. It's an organization that works with mid market companies, kind of small to medium sized businesses, and their leadership really kind of pushed to the next level. It's been an incredible organization that I've actually been able to experience myself. So it's been great to to hear you share the story of the development of it and how you started out in the credit union business as a student. We've been speaking with Kenny Beck on UNCAGED. UNCAGED is a show that celebrates thought leadership from today's top business leaders. I look forward to having you back in the future, Kenny. Talk to you soon, man.
Thanks, man. All right, take care.